Good evening, everyone. Calling the special Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 17, 2024 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the statement of values to be read. Secretary Boozer, please do the honors.
As we gather, we humbly seek blessings upon this meeting. May we act with strength, courage, and will to perform our obligations and duties to our people with justice to all. Let us seek wisdom so that we may act in the best interest of our people, our neighbors, and our country. All of this we ask so that we may serve our community with fairness and respect, putting their needs before all.
Thank you very much. Please have a seat. We will start with roll call. Elizabeth?
Sure. Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Here.
Commissioner Biagini?
Here.
Chair Kuru?
Here.
Commissioner Wang?
Here.
Commissioner Buza? Commissioner Salame?
Here.
Commissioner Crutchlow?
Here.
Thank you.
For the record, after the posting of the agenda, Commissioner Crutchlow requested that he be able to participate remotely pursuant to Government Code Section 54953F2 due to a medical condition. Is there a motion to approve this request for remote participation for Commissioner Crutchlow?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second? Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Biagini and seconded by Commissioner Bhatnagar.
Please cast your vote. Commissioner Crutchlow, you do vote on this, so would you like to tell me your vote, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Buza, can you cast your vote? Yes? Just what? Sure. Thank you. Okay, the motion passed. Thank you.
And I'm sorry to stand on ceremony, Madam Chair, but even on this vote, Elizabeth, you need to ask Commissioner Crutchlow.
Oh, I do. Okay, sorry. Sorry about that. So we're each vote, we're going to have to ask you this, Commissioner Crutchlow. I need to confirm if there are any other individuals 18 years or older that are present in the room with you at your remote location.
No, there's not.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. We have officially taken the vote to allow Commissioner Crutchlow to participate remote. Again, as all of our New World era, we are required to be in the chambers unless a medical condition requires us to do so. With that, we do have a full quorum. I will have Secretary Boozer read the Planning Commission meeting procedures for the record.
Thank you. Public hearings are conducted by the Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the commission directs all activities during the hearing. All comments shall be directed to the commission. Any items on the agenda to be continued or to a subsequent hearing, applicants will be allotted up to 10 minutes to present and justify proposals following staff presentation of the items. Other speakers will be given up to 2 minutes. The applicant is allotted up to 5 minutes for rebuttal of the comments. No additional comments will be accepted upon the close of the public hearing, although the commission reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. Special procedures time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. Appeal of the commission actions must be filed in writing within 7 calendar days.
Thank you, Secretary Boozer. Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each of the items on the agenda are available from the Planning Division office on the Friday afternoon preceding the meeting and available online. With that, we move to the next order of items, continuances and exceptions. This part of the meeting allows for applicants, members of the public, or other interested parties to request an item to be 1, continued without hearing, 2, withdrawn, or 3, taken out of order. staff, or members of the commission? Are there any requests from applicants, public, or the commission for a continuance or exception for any item on tonight's agenda? Again, today's a special commission meeting, but just for the record.
There are none.
Thank you. We will now continue. We do have a full quorum. I've reminded all of us, and so we can proceed without the announcement. Consent calendar. I don't think we have any consent calendar items. Should we read the procedures for the record still? City Attorney?
We do not have any
I know,
consent
but
items.
I'm asking if we should read.
Right, you don't need the paragraph about the consent calendar items.
Okay, because it's a special commission meeting, right? Okay. Since we don't have any items on consent calendar item, we will move, skipping the procedural readout. All right, now moving to public presentations. This is the order where any members of the public who would like to briefly address the commission can come to the podium and speak. Again, this is to members of public who would like to speak to any items not on tonight's agenda. Do we have any members online?
No, we do not.
Do we have any members here? Okay. Seeing none, we will continue with tonight's public hearing. We have two items tonight for review. The first is the re-adoption of the 2023 to 2031 housing element with revisions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have our consulting principal planner, John Beatty, who is on Zoom to provide a presentation to you this evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. Let's see if I can share my screen. Madam Chair, is everyone able to see the presentation slides?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. And good evening, Chair and Planning Commissioners. John Beatty, Planner and Community Development. It is a pleasure to be back before you once again to present the draft revisions to the city's adopted housing element. Since it's been a little while since we last met, the first several slides in this presentation will be a bit of a background on housing elements in general, and then more specifically about the City of Santa Clara's update process to date. After the background slides, we'll provide an overview of HCD's comments on the June 27th, 2023 adopted housing element and the city's responses to those comments, which ultimately resulted in the city very recently receiving a letter from HCD finding that our revised draft housing element meets the statutory requirements of state housing element law. All right. So, as you'll probably recall, housing elements are one of the required elements of a city or county's general plan, are required to be updated every 8 years, and are reviewed by the state's Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD. The city's prior 5th cycle housing element was adopted in December 2014 and certified by HCD in February of the following year. And that housing element covered the 8-year planning period that ended on January 31st, 2023. And so the current 6th cycle housing element, which was first adopted by the City Council on January 31st, 2023, and readopted with revisions on June 27th, 2023, covers the period from the end of the 5th cycle through January 31st, 2031. And as one of the more frequent questions we receive is, what are jurisdictions ultimately responsible for with these housing elements? And the answer, which may sound simple, but it has a lot of complexity, is that cities, jurisdictions, counties too, are responsible for planning for housing. So Although jurisdictions are not responsible for actually building housing, cities and counties must identify enough potentially developable land suitable for residential use to meet their regional housing needs allocation, or RENA, for the 8-year planning period. The housing element must include a housing plan, which consists of goals, policies, actions, and objectives that demonstrate how jurisdictions intend to meet their current and future housing needs at all income levels. And part of that plan includes evaluating and reducing, or sometimes removing, any regulatory challenges or barriers to meeting housing needs. And lastly, housing elements must be up to date with how they address and comply with all existing and new and upcoming housing laws throughout the planning period. So different regions of the state are on various timelines for their 6-cycle housing elements. For the Association of Bay Area Governments, APAG region, the region that we're a part of, the due date for submittal of an adopted housing element to HCD was January 31st, 2023, which is when the city initially adopted its 6-cycle housing element. And the initial due date for receiving HCD certification of ABAG's 6-cycle housing elements was May 31st, 2023. Housing elements adopted by that date would then have 3 years to complete any required rezonings. Housing elements that were adopted after that date were required to complete any rezonings necessary to accommodate a specific shortfall in meeting lower income RENA by January 31st of this year, 2024. And the city of Santa Clara is lucky in that it has no shortfall of sites to accommodate its RENA. The rezonings identified in the housing element, that we'll be talking about after this item, are included for their contribution to meeting HCD's recommended buffer for lower income units. And with the exception of affirmatively furthering fair housing, or AFFH, which is a new required component for 6-cycle housing elements, all the other required components of a housing element remain generally the same as the 5th cycle, with additional requirements added for analysis and for establishing specific metrics for measuring goals and commitments for how and by when certain actions and objectives would be accomplished. The 6-cycle housing element update process, for the ABAG region at least, began back in 2019 when HCD identified the total number of homes by affordability level that the Bay Area would need to plan for by 2031. With the city's participation, ABAG developed a methodology for allocating those 441,000 homes to all of the Bay Area jurisdictions, and ABAG later submitted their RENA plan to the state, and that was approved in January 2022. Santa Clara's 6-cycle RENA total is 11,632 units, and that number is further divided into the 3 income categories: lower income, moderate income, and above moderate income. Just for comparison, the city's 5th cycle RENA total was a little over 4,000 units. And this slide shows the housing element update timeline from when ABAG's RENA plan was approved by the state in early 2022 through HCD's October 2023 comments on the city's readopted housing element. And this slide is a summary of the comments we received from HCD throughout the update process on our various draft and adopted housing elements, showing the number of categories of comments and the total number of revision items at each review stage. And with each draft and before each adopted housing element, staff had worked as closely with HCD as their limited available time would allow to review their comments and the city's draft revisions. But starting in late 2023 and into the first few months of this year, HCD's availability and willingness, frankly, to meet improved substantially. Um, Whereas prior reviews were completed largely through a very formal review process with 60-day formal review timelines. The most recent preliminary draft informal review process that we're able to take advantage of was much more efficient. This meant that we were able to quickly set up meetings to discuss HCD's comments and our draft revisions until we no longer received any comments, and ultimately received a draft or conditional in compliance letter. This slide just really further illustrates the level of enhanced coordination that recently happened between the city and the with the dates of submittal of the various preliminary draft revisions on the left side, with the dates of HCD's informal feedback and the city's meetings with HCD on the right. Kind of stepping back to HCD's comments on the city's June 2023 readopted housing element, they identified 11 different revision items in 3 categories of comments related to the housing element sites inventory, governmental constraints, and affirmatively furthering fair housing. And the staff report goes into a little bit more detail about what all those comments and our responses were. HCD's comments related to the city's sites inventory really required and resulted in more substantial revisions when compared to the revisions requested in the other 2 categories of comments. So I'll go over, describe those briefly on this slide. In the sites inventory category, the key revisions were mostly about providing a lot of additional details, analysis, and conclusions about the availability of sites to develop and meet the city's RHNA, with an emphasis on the suitability of our non-vacant sites to redevelop within the planning period. And really all of our sites are pretty much all non-vacant. And the primary way all of this additional supplemental sites inventory data and analysis was included in the revised draft housing element was with the creation of a new quite large appendix, and that's Appendix C. This additional analysis, along with public feedback, and again, in close coordination with HCD, happened to result in the removal of several sites along the El Camino Real corridor, and one additional site in the Tasman East specific plan, as it was determined that these sites are less likely to redevelop within the time frame of the housing element. Just because they're not on the sites inventory for the housing element doesn't mean that they couldn't redevelop. It just means that when compared to other sites, that evaluation process determined that they were not as likely to redevelop within the time frame. And related to the sites inventory, HCD asked for changes that were also added to the housing plan and the housing resources chapters of the housing element. This rather busy table shows all of the pending and approved projects on the left side, along with the city's very conservative ADU projections and realistic capacity and other available sites, broken down by, again, the 3 affordability categories of lower income, moderate income, and above moderate income. In addition to the specific plans sites previously removed from the inventory as part of the adopted and then readopted housing element, this table was also revised to reflect the removal of the additional sites I described on the previous slide. But the good news is, even with the removal of all those sites, as it currently stands, the sites inventory has sufficient pipeline projects and realistic capacity in available sites to accommodate the city's required RENA, as well as HCD's recommended buffer at all affordability levels. And a buffer is just a surplus of capacity beyond the minimum RENA. So on this slide, I mean, the bottom line is we're doing fine in terms of the site's inventory. Doing well, actually. And as I mentioned at the beginning, at the end of our coordination process with HCD, after submittal of our revised draft to them for a formal review in March, on April 11th, we received a letter from HCD stating that the revised draft housing element meets the statutory requirements of state housing element law, with a condition that necessary rezonings are completed and the readopted housing element is submitted to and approved by HCD. But as I mentioned before, HCD has no additional comments or revisions for us to make. So assuming this revised draft housing element goes forward to City Council and is adopted, we'll move that forward to the formal review process and ultimately get certification of our housing element. So the next steps in this process after tonight, after Planning Commission's recommendation on the revised draft housing element, is a City Council adoption hearing on May 7th. Then, as I mentioned, a formal submittal and review process with HCD and ultimately certification. And that process, again, is the formal 60-day process. Could happen sooner than that. So with that, we ask that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to recommend the City Council amend the general plan by readopting the 2023 to 2031 housing element with revisions incorporated to address HCD's comments. And that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Any additional comments, questions, Commissioner Salem?
So I'm curious as if the numbers are reflecting the changes in the overall population for the area. We've apparently in the 2 years from 2020 to 2022 lost 65,000 residents in Santa Clara County and 250,000 in the Bay Area. Are our growth, are actually our shrinking numbers being reflected in the changes to the RENA and ABAG goals?
So the state hasn't, the state and ABAG have not changed our RENA numbers. The same RENA numbers that we received in January 2022 are reflected here in this table. And we're not obligated to produce more than that, but we are showing that we have not only overall capacity, but we are, in terms of pending and approved projects, we have more units in those projects alone to exceed our total RENA for that upcoming 8-year planning period.
Yeah, I'm mostly curious as to when we're going to hit the point where we start building homes to stay empty, apartments and things. Are we going to have sufficient residential interest? And when will that crossover happen, since this is supposed to last 8 years, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Salem. Any other comments, Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Chairman. Chair. Quick question. In the previous 8-year housing element and RENA plan, is there a number that you're aware of how long it took to get to this point, meaning the approval from HCD, compared to this time? Was it longer, shorter?
It was definitely shorter. And that was my experience in another jurisdiction that I worked in during their fifth cycle housing element update process. It was a much simpler time. The level of scrutiny and the requirements for analysis and additional metrics have all ramped up in the state's effort to try to do what it can to make this housing happen, if that makes any sense. So in terms of the process for submittal of the housing element to HCD for the fifth cycle, it was a matter of 2 months, maybe, from adoption to certification.
I
So
see.
60 days, probably.
But just by way of example, Commissioner, one of the 3 subject areas that HCD had the most concerns about was this affirmatively furthering fair housing, AFFH. That was not even a requirement in the last cycle. And so that took up a lot of time because it was brand new, and they didn't even know, I think, what they were asking for at first, because the advice we received from them evolved over the weeks.
Oh, thank you. The reason for the question, right? I mean, it's an 8-year plan, and we are now, from the date of submission, we are going to be at least a year and a half into that 8-year plan before we know what the plan is. So just trying to kind of understand, even though the process went more smoothly, you feel that it was a lot smoother process. The, let's call it, if I may use the word delay, was caused much by the complexity introduced this time around. Do I understand it correctly?
I think so. I mean, there was definitely, you're right, there was substantially more complexity with this housing element cycle than with the prior. I would say that the city has been operating with an adopted housing element since January 31st, 2023, and then readopted with some revisions in June of that year. So we still adopted by the deadline, and we are currently implementing the housing element. Just hasn't been certified yet.
Yeah, understood. And perhaps a comment, but maybe you can answer it. At some point, we are going to review on an annual basis how we are doing against the committed plan, right? That was not part of the, so go ahead.
Oh, and we, John Davidson may be able to weigh on this a little bit more, but yes, each year, part of the process of implementing our housing element is to do annual progress reports that we share with the city council and then submit to HCD for their review so that they can verify that we are on track to meet all of our commitments and requirements in terms of not only the numbers themselves of housing units, but on the housing plan in its entirety. So our housing plan is very robust. It has a lot of target dates in it. It has quite a few opportunities for checking in to make sure that we're on track to do whatever we can do in order to facilitate achieving all of our goals.
Madam Chair, if I may. So this evening for you, under the Director of Community Development reports, and I've already passed it out to you.
Yeah.
I've got the AAPR, the Annual Progress Report for 2023, so I can give you a little more update during that section, but yes.
Oh, good, so, okay.
Yes, because the commission did previously ask for it.
Yeah, I
so
was going to ask. Okay, perfect. Any other comments? Commissioner Buzek, go ahead.
I understand that we have to meet the criteria that the state has put upon us. The other different housing elements we have to get done. But my major concern is, just looking at it, I was just going through here the different properties, is that we're losing a lot of business doing that. I was just going through it. There's a lot of businesses that are going to be put out, and they're good for our tax basis. Not only that, one of the elements that we're missing here is our infrastructure. How can we maintain our infrastructures? It's like you put in the housing, but you're forgetting about all the infrastructures that we have to have in the city, with our roads, power plants, sewer systems, police, fire, schools. All of this stuff is like being put in the background. Let's just build the houses and the heck with everything else. This is what it looks like, that we're trying to appease the state government, but forgetting about our cities. Let the city take the hit on this. This is one of the things that it's like taking a really like a hit of castor oil. It just doesn't, they may tell you it's good for you, good for what we need, but let me tell you, it sure doesn't taste right, and it's just not going to feel right. And this is one of the things that I like to see that they bring up. You can see all of this beautiful presentation, what we required to do, but the foundation is not there. I don't see the foundation there for our city, and that's my main concern. Everything that we're doing here is for their city and for the citizens that live in the city, not the ones that are going to be coming in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Boozer. Noted. I have a few pointed questions, but I want to make sure I give it. Commissioner Wang, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, actually, I just try to echo Commissioner Boozer. That's also my concern, right? Every year you give you a number. You need to build so many houses, but where's the infrastructure? I mean, we are just a city, but from the state, I think maybe it's a better idea. They can build a new city to meet the requirement. So you cannot just push. Yeah, no matter what, we have a limit. Yeah, the resources. I think water, that's another one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. One quick. Would staff like to respond to the ability for, and I'm sure this was one of the validations, so I will give you the moment to say that all the inventory of vacant sites should have demonstrated its developable capacity. So would you like to address the infrastructure validation that we went through in deeming that yes, I'm sure the state acknowledged that now it's yes, but if you want to walk us through.
Sure, you're correct. The sites inventory does show the sites that are developable for housing, and as John mentioned, we had to do extra research and information and to prove to HCD that those sites could redevelop. If you look back at that slide where we list where those sites are, they're in our specific plan areas. Those specific plans have environmental impact reports that studied, the availability to be able to serve the sites with water, sewer, power, all of those things. So, those sites are viable sites for redevelopment of housing, and they're all planned for housing.
Thank you. And I want to just clarify that these sites we have also reviewed for that same infrastructure. So putting the perspective and the onus is on all levels of jurisdiction to ensure that this is accountable. The state, all it's mandating is there is an accountability towards the numbers. With that, Commissioner Biagini.
I almost think you answered my question.
Didn't mean to.
Well, I'll tell you what my question was. It's maybe a little different. Does HCD require that the plan includes the viability of infrastructure? And it's sounding like you answered that question with the general plan, taking that into consideration. Am I correct?
No. Yes, but go ahead.
Oh, John, go ahead.
Oh, the simple answer is yes. I mean, that is one of the required pieces of information that the state asked for. And we have to make some statements about the availability of infrastructure. We have to look at a whole spectrum of different bits of analysis, and one of those pieces is availability of infrastructure to serve new development. But as Leslie mentioned, the bulk of our, we're very lucky. We have a lot of that analysis that was accomplished through the development of the specific plans, and a large component of our capacity and pipeline projects, the pending and approved projects, is in those planning areas, those specific plan areas.
I have a follow-up question for you, John.
Yes.
I don't want to assume this, so I'll ask it without reading through my 10 pounds of paper here. Is then the availability of the infrastructure built into the current revised plan in a way that we can feel assured that we're not going to go through another revision, for lack of a better way of putting it? State's going to accept this, or is it tested yet?
So at least in terms of that analysis, nothing's changed since the last adopted housing element, or the first
Okay.
adopted housing element. And the state hasn't, in all of their reviews, which are plentiful at this point, have not raised that as a concern at all.
Okay, understood. So it's been before them and they haven't complained about it yet. Thank you.
Correct.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Crutchlow does have his hand up.
Okay, Commissioner Crutchlow, please go ahead.
Thank you. So when we talk about having to budget for infrastructure and things like that, is there an actual budget that we can see and how much money we're talking about for this in particular?
Leslie or
Yeah.
John?
No, I don't think we have a budget or a cost. No, I mean,
So great question, Commissioner Crutchlow, if I might say it in a different way. In the recent city's priority setting session, infrastructure ranked high on their interest to budget and plan for projects and CIP. What Commissioner Crutchlow is asking for, how much of the city infrastructure accounts for all these additional housing efforts? Or, if I can paraphrase additionally, is that the onus on the developer to come to the table with the costs associated with all those projects?
So you're right. Our general plan is our plan for the future, how much development the city's going to accommodate through the end of the general plan. Our individual departments like water, sewer, public works, they use that as their guide and they plan for their capital improvement projects, which have a cost and the city budgets and pays for. But as developers redevelop, they also contribute to that cost. You'll often see them, building new sidewalks in front of their project to current city standards. They might have to upsize sewer pipes, because of their added development. So some of that the developer bears as well. I don't know what that actual number is, but you could probably look at the CIP budget to see, what we're doing now and how much it's costing. But they do plan for the future based on our general plan and our capacity.
Commissioner Crutchlow, was that helpful? I can't see
Oh,
you.
you did a very good job with that. So, but let me add another thing. I think this is going to be way too much fun. But
Before you do, Commissioner, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Can I ask? We certainly miss seeing you here. Is there a way we could see you on video?
There you go.
Technically,
You're welcome.
Technically, it
I know you wanted to see
required.
my face, but
Thank you for that.
with
You're-
AI and the way it is, I could have been some evil person, and I'm
You could have been a
happy that
cat.
you're doing. I could have been a cat. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry about that. Not a problem. Okay. So I would like to know at some point, and obviously we can't do it now, but what this is going to cost, and that I think would help facilitate some of the dialogue going forward. One question would be, is the capital improvement budget that was talked about by the city, would this be part of that? The one that they projected they needed like 634 million?
So the housing that we're planning for are in our specific plan areas, like John had mentioned, we're kind of lucky. So it's already part of our general plan. Those land uses are already planned for. So those would be included. Does that make sense? by answering your question.
So for the ones that we've already planned, yes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this is projecting out further than that, right? So I'm just trying to make sure I understand where in what budget is this that I could see those numbers projected in some kind of pro forma. And I don't need it tonight. I'm just curious if that is available at some point.
So to paraphrase Commissioner Crutchlow's request for a future, if we could align the capital investment program 10-year horizon with the projected housing associated with all these projects, and of course, the infrastructure costs. So it's a CIP,
Yes.
and if it's a 10-year CIP, and I don't know if city does a 10-year CIP, but if you do, then it's a good marker. But to the question projected is also this housing element accounts for 8 years of its tenure, so 2031. How long is our general plan valid?
2035.
Okay, so they're closely aligned in time, meaning that when the next general plan comes up,
Yeah, and that's simply because that is what we planned it for. It's not a requirement of state law that you update the general plan as a whole every X years, but that is the horizon of our current general plan, yes.
okay, so to Commissioner Crutchlow's request, if we can get a general read of the city's ability to fund the infrastructure associated with all of the commitments that we are sharing with the state, and if it's a 10-year horizon, then it's even more better that we know, okay, every year, these are the plans. Of course, to Commissioner Crutchlow's clarification as well, the developer has got to come to the table with the project that basically then funds majority of the infrastructure within their site.
Yep. And we also have to be careful. I'll just do a little tangent to our lawyer. The Fifth Amendment taking
Yeah.
court thing that's going on right now in the Supreme Court, I'd be interested to see if that affects it whatsoever. But that being said, this is all future stuff, but I think the key here is going back to some of the commissioner's comments about, we're planning all this and we're going to exceed it based on what we're seeing here. What happens if things change and all of a sudden we have this big, glut of people leaving versus maybe a glut of people coming in, and how do we accommodate that, and how do we make sure that the state doesn't mandate something that becomes onerous to us is really, I think, the question comes down to. But Madam Chair, you're very good at interpreting this, so I leave it to you, and that's my final comment.
Thank you so much, Crutchlow. And I have a series of questions, so maybe it'll unravel with my questions. So staff and Commissioner, please bear with me. So I'll just preface, since this is also something that I have done in the past, so I kind of have an indication of how painful it is. So first off, thank you to all the staff who've been time and again at the doorstep asking for the state why there are now new comments and why it wasn't done the first time around. And you've gone 10 rounds plus, and you still get additional comments. So welcome to us. Maybe that's how clients see us too. So let's be kind now to our constituents. But on that side note, I want to just give a preface also. So I did a quick research online and in the HCD, and of course, across California, 536 jurisdictions, about 221 are currently out of compliance. So just giving a perspective, less than half, close to 40%. In Santa Clara County, we are 16 cities, and 7 are out of compliance, including ourselves. So just giving that, we have some camaraderie. There are 8 good, still 9 good cities that finished their due faith effort. But I also want to put us a little perspective, and you take what you want out of this read. The cities that are actually not in compliance are Cupertino, Los Gatos, Montecito, Palo Alto, Santa Clara City, Santa Clara County, and Saratoga. Wow, we must be one of those high-income people, aren't we? Okay. Well, if it's a make good feel, but on that same related note, just wanted to also understand, what is our AMI for the city of Santa Clara, or is it to a set number given by ABAG? How do we track, because every year that's going to be different?
It is. It does change. It goes up is my understanding. It doesn't actually go down. For fiscal year 2023, which is the last AMI, for a four-person household, that's $181,300.
That's fairly high.
Very
My
high.
God, wouldn't we all love that income at home?
Yeah, and so the numbers that you see underneath are a breakdown of what that area median income, how that relates to acutely low income, that's ALI, extremely low income, that ELI, very low income, and moderate income. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers shown under are all affordable. The state had to add ELI to break VLI down, and recently we're seeing another category of lower income in the acutely low income number. So
And-
it's broken down.
And from the report that I read, I thought that was the biggest concern that HCD continued to push on us, that we were not able to demonstrate that we could meet the VLI, ELI, and ALI housing counts.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a concern they have for most jurisdictions, and most jurisdictions struggle with how to accommodate. So in terms of numbers, we're obligated to demonstrate that we have capacity to meet the needs at all income levels, lower, moderate, and above moderate. Lower happens to be broken up into VLI and LI. And so combined, we have the capacity that exceeds our lower income RENA capacity, that allows us to have a buffer of 37%.
But this does not show ELI.
ELI is a breakdown of VLI. So,
Well, except lower.
Yeah, so it would be half of the VLI number is this.
So is that actually demonstrated, or are we making assumptions that it can be?
So it can be. We don't have to break down the VLI into other subcategories. We don't have to break down lower income into VLI and LI. We chose to show what we are accomplishing, not only with our pipeline projects, but with our projections of other units that will come in the next 8 years. So most jurisdictions don't break this down into these two categories. They just show one number. But we wanted to show everyone that we're proud of what the city is already accomplishing in terms of production of VLI and LI units.
Yeah, and thank you again for reiterating. I just recognized the tone in whatever was said in your report, that seemingly the state had honed into our ability to demonstrate the real truth of the accountability of the affordable housing counts.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't want to misinterpret. I just want to make sure that
that's true.
It went on record. And so thank you again. And I want to make sure we've been through this rodeo 3-4 times already, so I won't belabor it, but just wanted to get through the highest level, so we do it off like a checkbox. But from the state's requirement, the identification of sites, we are all good, which was our original inventory, so we have completed that check. That the sites can accommodate low and very low income, BLI, RHNA, check.
Yes.
That we have capacity analysis, which is the methodology used to determine the number of units that can be done, check.
Correct. Check.
And then we have sufficient analysis to determine if the non-vacant sites are appropriate to accommodate the jurisdictions. Do we have any non-vacant sites?
Most of our sites are non-vacant. We don't have vacant sites, and that's the issue. So with the current requirements, the analysis for non-vacant sites is much greater than if you had a completely vacant site, a bare site, no buildings on it. And so we have sites that are unoccupied with buildings that are unoccupied, but those aren't considered vacant if they have buildings on them.
So I'm assuming that's where you got grilled.
It
Sorry.
It is. And
Am
so
okay, thank you. Sorry, I was being too blunt. I'm sorry for the record. But
Oh, they grilled us on the non-vacant, and we
Yeah.
added 54 pages of analysis
Yeah.
explaining why the no vacant sites
yeah,
are
because
likely
the
to
other
develop.
jurisdictions I looked at, they have ag lands. They can show n number of
Yes.
vacant lands to demonstrate potential. I was making a point here with comparison, but thank you for reaffirming.
Yeah, we should annex one of those cities. That would help.
Exactly.
Let me make a point out of that, since you're mentioning that. We're going to be assuming to rezoning sites on the El Camino, you know?
Yeah.
And the El Camino that we were speaking with our city attorney a little bit earlier is that we have at least 20 sites that have been vacant for years. I'm not talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. We're talking 10 years at least, and nothing's been done about it.
Yeah.
And the council has not done anything about it either, and they're aware of it. They drive by it every day. And what are we doing with those sites? And here we are, we're going to displace probably other businesses and still have sites sitting there empty. That's my number one concern with all of this that we're going to be approving. And,
Yeah.
you know, so
Well-
what can we do in here? I hope the council will hear this, like they say they hear us sometimes. Why don't we start working together with the city attorney and start leveling really high penalties on those businesses that the developers that went ahead and vacated those businesses for close to 10 years now, and they're sitting empty on the El Camino. It makes us look like a third world country out there. So let's see what happens. I don't want to see that happen in down Tasman and putting little businesses out of, throwing them out. And just, this is.
Thank you, Commissioner Boozer. Another day, another time, another topic. But yes, duly noted on some of the comparables that we can. But we do see El Camino Real rezoning sites, and it offers, I would say, a reasonable 1,000 units. We'll see. But to the last checkpoint, and I was going off of a list here, determination of adequate sites after consideration of above analysis and any alternate methods to accommodate RENA, the determination of whether sufficient sites exist to accommodate or if there is a shortfall. So I'm assuming we are blessed in many ways. That was said 4 times. We didn't have that problem of adequate sites.
correct, no shortfall.
Okay. And so that, I think, were my questions, and I think I gave my observations as well. But I wanted to also ask, what would the penalties look like if this wasn't adopted? And we are already beyond the January timeframe. I know the city finally gave its blessing in a way. It still has to go through their final certification process, right? Which is that again for public review process? So we're already 6 months out of compliance. I mean, what am I saying? From January, so 1.5 years out of compliance. What's the ramification if we don't get this certified?
Well, you're, of course, familiar with many of the consequences. The number one is that builder's remedy, where a developer can come in and build housing even if it's totally inconsistent with both the general plan and the zoning. There are 3 builder's remedy applications pending at the city right now. We are working with the developers and taking an aggressive position that our housing element is great, certification or no, and we do not concede that the builder's remedy should apply. But they will continue to file builder's remedy applications if we are uncertified. We are in the 3rd bucket of SB 35 cities. SB 35, you will recall, is the law that allows for ministerial approval of housing developments that are a certain percentage affordable. For an uncertified city, if a project is 10% affordable, then we have to ministerially approve it if it's a residential site. Hopefully, we will get certified, and then we will move back into being either a 50% city or a city where that law doesn't apply at all. There are limits on the densities we can approve or not approve on future projects if we have if we have a housing element that's not substantially compliant. We're actually prohibited from approving projects that are less than 24 dwelling units per acre if our housing element is not substantially compliant with state law. There are many additional avenues to challenge most of our land use decisions if our housing element is not certified, both from people that want to block developments from happening, NIMBYs, or from people that do want development and don't like the way we've approved it, or want us to force us to approve a development that's not exactly what we designed. The list goes on. And of course, one of the major ones is we lose access to a number of funding sources. And so our efforts to build affordable housing and a variety of state grants, it dries up without certification.
Can we be fined? I'm seeing that as the first.
Well, there are ways we can face fines. I mean, the Housing Accountability Act, if we disapprove a project in violation of the Housing Accountability Act, we get fined $10,000 per unit that we improperly rejected. So somebody could claim that we have to approve their project because we are uncertified, and if we get into a fight over, well, no, we don't have to approve it, then they will sue us for $10,000 a unit. You know, it's one of the builder's remedies applications is many hundreds of units. So it would be many millions of dollars that the city would have to pay if we lost such a lawsuit. So yeah, being certified is a good thing.
Thank you. And as you were speaking, I just quickly pulled up for our awareness. It's called the IMBI law, Housing Element Compliance, Fines and Fees, up to 10 to hundreds of thousands that City Attorney just alluded to. Funding disqualification, again, mentioned mandated compliance that the courts can issue an order that the community bring it by a court order. And I think there was a recent court case, Sacramento Alliance versus City of Folsom. Suspension of local land use power, which is significant.
Yes. Same thing happened to San Diego some years ago.
And I thought Oakland or some other city recently lost to their housing element, and the state basically, anyway, I can't comment on things not fully aware. The court approval of the housing developments. So if the city does not have its housing element, the court can take it upon itself to then approve housing projects. So a builder can go directly to court, and moratorium on all permits.
Yes.
Wow, aren't we all here to say yes?
Madam Chair, can I ask a question of the
Yes.
city attorney? Which developers are in compliant, you know, right now you said you were dealing with a few, 2 or 3 developers. Who are they, and where are the properties located? If you don't mind saying.
Oh, I'll have to get Ms. Xavier to help me. The biggest one is at the old Oracle campus. The developer's name is Valley Oak Partners. They want to cut the Oracle campus in half, use the southern half to build hundreds of very expensive single-family and townhomes, and put a small apartment building in one corner and put all of the little affordable units in that corner to comply with the affordability requirement. We are negotiating with that developer. There is also a townhouse development on Lafayette that's been proposed, although we haven't heard from them in a little while. They filed their preliminary application some months ago.
Where in Lafayette?
In an industrial site, Parker Court. So it's not too far north of City Hall. And
I don't know exactly where that is. Yeah.
so I think it was a few dozen, I want to say. And then there's a third application along El Camino Real near the train station. There's currently a bunch of office buildings there, and they want to knock down some of the office buildings. That developer, we're actually having a very productive working relationship, because we pointed out they can actually get approval without the builder's remedy. There's a much easier path forward that wouldn't involve, you know, well,
A litigious.
yes, yeah, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Anyway, but they can, additional developers can file until we get certification.
Yeah.
Not the adoption date, the
That's what I'm-
certification
that's what
date,
I'm-
which could still be 2 months down the road.
Working court of one end of it is like a little, 4 or 5 little buildings there in the back there, industrial buildings. But there's like duplexes, sort of
Yeah.
duplexes all along the side.
Yeah.
Familiar with that, and that's the road.
Okay. Thank you, staff. Thank you, John, for hanging out there for us. Should I open for public comment?
Yeah, we still need to have public comment. Also, I did want to make the commission aware.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Salim.
I did want to make the commission aware, you know, we have received a lot of support now for this housing element, including from HCD itself, which
Yes.
is the support we've been craving. But there is one letter urging you to not approve it.
Okay.
And it is from the same critics, if you were, that have criticized it in the past. It is
Got
the
it.
Housing Action Coalition, and they are represented by a law firm named Farella, Braun, and Martell. I'm not going to go through their criticism letter other than to state that I believe it restates most of the same criticisms they've had before. First, they say we should have, you know, made up for all the units that were not built in the last cycle. That's actually not what the law says. We have to designate sites. We don't actually have to build the units. Second, they question the way we calculate the development capacity of our sites. We explained in an August letter exactly how we calculated it. We followed the statute. We explained the math. I'm not going to explain the math again to you tonight, but they're aware that we're following the statute, and so is HCD.
Too bad you can bill them for our time spent.
I wish I could. And then thirdly, the bulk of their letter concerns the non-vacant sites. They go site by site and say, this one's not going to be developed, this one's not going to be developed. I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that they didn't actually read the housing element. Because again, there's 56 pages of analysis explaining why each of the sites will develop. But let me just give you a really brief example. 3100 Patrick Henry, it's the O2 micro business. What they say is the draft housing element does not suggest that O2 Micro has shown any interest in developing its headquarters as an apartment complex. Now, here's what the housing element says. The owner of this property, O2 Micro, was a very active participant in the Patrick Henry Drive specific plan, including providing public comment at all public hearings and community meetings, and requested that the property be redesignated to allow residential development. One other example, they talk about 3 sites on Calle del Mundo where they say the city acknowledges that the property owner, quote, has expressed no interest in redevelopment and has not attempted to figure out whether the family is likely to discontinue its glass business in the next 7 years and redevelop. And if you actually read the element, what it says is the owner has been in conversations with real estate brokers about marketing their property for sale for residential development. So you have a letter before you that is full of falsehoods. And again, I will give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they just didn't read it. I would suggest they read it.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification, Xander. Commissioner Salim has a question.
Okay, so I have a question also for Xander. I've heard comments and questions revolving around the costs and budgets for various infrastructure projects and things. Help clarify the boundaries of the Planning Commission for conversations around budget. As I understand it, it's not in our purview to discuss how much things cost, but we can raise concerns and red flags over the fact that these things are needed. Is that correct?
I can't fault your reasoning, Commissioner. I mean, you guide the City Council on the land use decisions of the city, and most land use decisions involve a large investment of funds, and if they don't have the funding to do one thing, then it's going to affect whether they can carry out your policy recommendations.
So we as a commission really don't need or can benefit from exploration by staff on cost budgets, et cetera, because we are really not a deciding body for the expenditure of the money for those projects.
Well, we're not a deciding body for anything. We recommend.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's even
Right.
better example. We're a recommending body.
We
but-
recommend,
yeah.
but I think recommend, one has to also be well informed. So while we certainly can't change budgets and such, it does behoove us to know, well, how much money does the city have to put out to do this kind of budget? I think it's just one aspect of being informed. So I
Yeah.
agree with you. We don't want to sit here and discuss budget from the standpoint of, should we do this or that based on this dollars, but we should have the idea of, here's what it's going to cost everybody. Is that a factor in our recommendation to city council?
Yeah, I think that makes excellent sense. If staff is willing to do ballpark estimates or rough estimates, and we can then, as a commission, raise the flag that the infrastructure is going to cost the city a lot of money, maybe you should take a peek at it, put it on your priority session a little higher. I think that would be a really good use of our research and our investment in time. So hopefully that can be done reasonably easily. Nothing's easy, I know.
Are you asking for that information for like
Yeah, I
every
think-
project that comes to the
Well,
commission, every
that-
new
that
construction
request-
project?
That request has already been asked.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just trying to gauge at what level we could benefit from the information and where we're going to be able to use that information to guide our recommendations.
It's a good thought. I'll just, again, from staff, and Xander can set me straight, from a charter, funding and financing is I would say, a slightly, off tangent for our purview. And I say that with a lot of caution, because we are not in any way able to, and I don't know, does the Planning Commission get to review the CIP as a recommending entity?
The code actually says that the Planning Commission shall serve as a correlating agency
In fact,
for the
I thought the
capital
Planning Commission
improvement
should
program
help.
of the city.
Yeah.
I don't know what correlating means exactly, but it says you and it says CIP, so I think that means you're involved.
I know, because when in my past life, we had to take it to the Planning Commission, or at least have them basically bless it through a letter saying it has been at least sent to them ahead of the CIP being adopted and the local jurisdiction.
I think you have to make general plan consistency determinations with respect to each project, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
That's a sort of a pro forma process we
So
go through.
we
but-
may see the CIP in a curvilinear way. I mean, I don't know the right word, but in a tangential way. But I don't think in our direct purview, we have an ability to require a funding mechanism of infrastructure.
Right.
Come for our revenue.
I really need to understand
Yeah.
where our lines are.
Yeah.
Because that well is really deep, and if we start diving in, looking at budgets and correlation
Yeah, that's,
expenses to the development process, we'll be drowned.
yes.
But on a project-by-project basis, I agree with you. I think that doesn't make sense. At a level like this, what we're talking about, it would make some sense to have some ideas about what are we projecting for this period of time and such, and how does that factor in? But on a, per project basis, no.
So I can just say one thing. John Davidson here, our other principal planner that you'll be hearing from soon, reminded me that our specific plan areas do include infrastructure fees that the developers pay. So when we create the specific plan, we look at the required infrastructure to serve it, and we develop a fee that's charged in order to provide that infrastructure. So for those specific areas, there is the infrastructure fee.
Got it.
If it's outside of a specific plan area, it's considered, covered under our general plan.
Duly noted. Okay. Yes, Commissioner Bhatnagar?
Thank you, Chair. So as I think your earlier comments were indicating, you were going through a checklist of things that are good in this new 8-year plan that's been presented, and hopefully will get certified. So in the light of that, and given the record that we have for the previous elements, the 8-year plans that we've had 5 more times in the past, and your observation that Santa Clara is one of the non-compliant cities, So let me now, with that background, let me project now, in 2031, let's work together and make this a reality, because there's nothing preventing it except ourselves. Our own planning department. It's not that the builders are not coming with their 15, 20% lower income requirements. So there is that opportunity to have a different outcome in 2031, and we need to do something to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bhatnagar. Well said. I will also just throw in there to Xander's earlier point on the letter by Farrell that the state has acknowledged receipt of it in the October 20th letter time frame, and then given their feedback, which is probably already then addressed in our current April 11th confirmation. So thank you again for, and again, I appreciate individuals who have taken whatever the effort they have. So I will acknowledge the law firm that went and visited all the sites for ensuring compliance. I will consider them as stewards, watchdogs. Of course, there might be vested interests. We won't go there, but I appreciate the knowledge that is brought back because of that kind of information to the Planning Commission. So thank you again. With that, can I open for public comment? Not that I see anybody here, but can I open for public comment? Anybody online?
There are no hands online.
Okay, opened, and then can I have a motion to close public comment?
I'd like to make a motion to close public comment.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Bouza and seconded by Commissioner Biagini. All right, without additional deliberation.
Actually,
I'm
we're not
sorry.
done yet.
I'm
Commissioner
sorry.
Salame, can you cast your vote? Commissioner Crutchlow, could you please let us know your vote?
Yeah, so number one, the room is empty.
Okay, very good.
Number
very
two.
good. Thank you for beating me to that. Very good.
I'm trying to be efficient, and I vote yes.
Excellent, thank you. The motion passed, thanks.
Oh, well, we all learned from this. Thank you, Commissioner Crutchlow. Okay, do we see the, okay, motion passes, thank you. Can I now entertain a motion from the recommendations to City Council? Somebody please do the honors, or I can read it.
Okay, I'll do it.
Commissioner Biagini to the rescue.
Reader.
All right.
Go ahead.
So,
It's only one.
yeah, recommendation that we adopt a resolution to recommend the city council amend the general plan by readopting the 2023 to 2031 housing element with the revisions incorporated to address HCD comments.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Commissioner, motion by Commissioner Biagini, second by Commissioner Bhatnagar.
And I'll vote yes. No one's here. I'm lonely.
Thank you, and the motion passed, thank you.
Thank you again to staff, John and John, both Johns, John squared, for the effort that went into this, and thank you for hanging with us. Again, months to get final certification, but we hope City Council will adopt soon. We move now to the second order of tonight's agenda, which is the rezoning of 17 sites along El Camino Real totaling 27.7 acres to MURC, mixed-use regional commercial, consistent with the city's general plan land use diagram for the purpose of adding additional sites to the city's housing element. CEQA is a use of previously adopted addendum to the general plan 2010-2035 EIR for the zoning code update. Sorry, I was rushing through that, but I hope that's what I read.
And Madam Chair, I'll just jump in. Just to inform the commission, we will be bifurcating this into two actions. The first action is for 16 of the sites that are listed in the agenda packet. The second action will be solely for the property located at 2789 El Camino Real. So this first presentation you're about to hear is not about 2789 El Camino Real, but it is about every other property on the list.
Thank you again for clarifying. Staff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a proposal to rezone 17 sites along El Camino to mixed-use regional commercial consistent with the city's general plan for the purpose of adding additional sites to the housing element update. This is a required action by the State Department of Housing and Community Development to have what they consider a reasonable buffer of sites as we go forward with the implementation of the housing element itself. So, as John already explained, we're supposed to meet the RENA allocation of 11,600 units, and then also in addition provide a 15% buffer for all sites, and they have to be both have consistent zoning and general plan designations and allow for residential development. They also have to meet minimum density requirements. So as John pointed out, all of our sites in the city, because we're an infill city, are reliant on redevelopment. HCD asked us to remove some of the sites because of the unlikeliness of those sites being redeveloped in the next 8 years. So these El Camino sites essentially make up for those that were excluded during the review and refinement process of this version of the housing element update. So the state has required us to have a program to rezone the identified El Camino Real sites, and that's part of their conditional in compliance and certification letter, that we are required to have a program where we have adopted or rezoned these sites in advance of certification of the housing element. So these sites, as mentioned, are consistent with the general plan land use diagram, and all we're doing is applying a rezoning consistent with that general plan land use diagram of mixed-use regional commercial. And the mixed-use regional commercial designation is important because it meets the minimum required density from the state of 30 dwelling units to the acre. So mixed-use regional commercial, the density range is from 37 to 50. The good thing is that with a regional or with a mixed-use designation, this still allows for a variety of commercial uses. So commercial uses can continue on and go forward and could be provided in a mixed-use configuration along with residential. So this continues to allow El Camino to be a regional commercial corridor in addition to providing housing that's really at the center of the city's transportation network, the El Camino. Just for the commission's interest, this is the map showing where the El Camino sites proposed to be rezoned are. In our general plan land use diagram, most of the regional commercial sites are focused around Lawrence Expressway, Scott Boulevard, and where there are larger sites with regional commercial uses. So it's not all of El Camino, it's a select number of sites that meet that minimum density requirement. So staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending that the City Council approve the proposed El Camino rezonings consistent with the city's general plan land use diagram for the purpose of adding, I guess in the first motion, 16 additional sites to the city's housing element sites inventory.
So, John, just to make sure we don't have conflict, in the previous diagram of the 17 sites, was any one of those the one that was excluded for deliberation?
Yes, it would be, and Xander has the address.
Okay.
2789 El Camino,
Okay.
which looks like it's just east of, wait,
Yeah, which way is up?
Just east of
Bowers.
Bowers. Yes.
Is it the
So
Sushi O
this one.
Sushi restaurant?
That's the one? Okay. So just want to make sure, sorry, to the person who has the conflict, close your eyes. Okay. Okay. So, okay, is that, John, your end of
Yeah.
presentation?
So
Okay,
that-
just want to
that
make sure.
concludes my presentation,
Yeah, I know, I
and-
saw the last slide, I just want to make sure. So, it's a very simple item, according to what we are asked to. It's to basically align the 17 sites to go in compliance with the general plan, 16, for our first deliberation. And it is already aligned with HCD's recommendation. And it is now, according to our new zoning code update, the mixed-use regional commercial. Is that the new verbiage?
Yeah. And Madam Chair, can I just add one more sort of point of information? We'll be coming to you soon with a zoning map adoption.
I was thinking this was-
Yeah.
yes,
And so
okay.
this is ahead of that, just specifically because HCD wanted us to take this action for these sites, which is why we're bringing this to you now. I think actually at our next meeting next week, we'll be bringing you the map adoption.
so-
So yes, this
I thought this
would
was
have been,
that, because,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Okay.
the overall city, zoning code map update will be coming to you.
Any questions?
This is
to
ahead of
staff?
it.
Commissioner Biaggi?
I may have missed something, but why are we pulling out 2789 ECR?
One of the commissioners lives near 2789.
Oh.
The mystery
Okay.
commissioner will be revealed shortly.
And will be banished from this?
That is correct.
So actually, does it help the commission and the proceedings if we just do it as one block and I just recuse myself for these proceedings?
Well,
We're already here.
but you're already here, you've been sitting up here.
Doesn't
We'll
matter
have
at
to
this time.
start all over.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, that one
You
just,
could do all of that. Okay. On that light note, any other questions to staff as to why? All right. So I will open for public comment.
There are no hands online.
Okay.
And no one in the
Seeing no, can we open and close public comment? And close public.
motion to close public comment?
Seconded.
Okay, we'll give Lance a chance. Motion by Commissioner Biagini, second by Commissioner Lance to close public comment. Because,
So are we voting?
yes,
Go ahead, Commissioner Crutchlow.
Yep, place is still empty.
and just to clarify, it's adopting, okay, sorry, go ahead.
This is to close
to
public
close.
hearing. Thank you. And the motion passed. Thank you.
Now, can I have a motion?
Yes, I would like to be very careful how I say this. Adopt a, well,
It's right there,
yeah, but I'm changing a word in it.
just 16.
Recommend to, exactly, recommend to adopt a resolution recommending that the city council approve the proposed El Camino rezonings consistent with the city's general plan land use diagram for the purpose of adding 16 additional sites to the city's housing element sites inventory.
With the exclusion of address.
And the exclusion would be the address of 2789 El Camino Real.
We have a motion, do I have a second? Commissioner Bartnagar, second, sorry. We have a motion by Commissioner Biagini, second by Commissioner Bartnagar.
Next one, too.
Commissioner Crutchlow, go ahead and cast your vote, please, or let us know your vote.
Yes,
And you can confirm that there
place
is.
is empty.
Thank you very much.
I see a ghost.
And the motion passed. Thank you.
Is that a cat in the background?
We're making fun anyway. Thank you again. He actually looked back.
And now
It happens in every one of those horror movies. They don't look backwards,
right.
and that's when they get caught, so.
Exactly.
let's go hide in the cemetery.
I have a second motion.
Yes, wait, no, you can't.
Commissioner Batnagar would like to make a disclosure.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
So I'd like to disclose that I'm within 1,000 feet of the excluded property at 2789 El Camino Real. So I'd like to recuse myself from the proceedings to adopt or reject the next resolution.
Do we need a motion for this?
No, he just needs to leave.
he just needs to leave.
Get out.
I promise I'll call
Watch
you
out for the
back.
ghosts.
All right, now is that the only motion again?
No,
It's a different
regrettably,
one.
you have to do a separate public hearing. So please ask for members of the public, and then please reclose, and
I
then
see.
vote.
This is fun anyway today, nobody's here. Okay, we will open public comment to review the addition of one additional site at address 2789 El Camino Real to be added to the city's housing site. Do we have anybody online?
There are no hands online.
There's none on site.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion to close public comment by Commissioner Bouza, seconded by Commissioner Biagini. Commissioner Biagini seconded it.
Okay, go ahead and cast your vote.
I'll vote yes. And again, the place is empty.
Thank you very much.
Thank God you don't.
And the motion passed.
And for the final resolution, Madam Chair, I would suggest you ask staff to prepare a resolution that is word for word identical to the resolution that you just adopted. We don't have it in front of you, but instead of a list of 16 properties, it'll have a list of one property, 2789 El
I
Camino
think I
Real.
have it. Can I give it a shot?
Please do.
Recommend that we adopt a resolution recommending that the city council approve the proposed El Camino rezoning, singular, consistent with the city's general plan land use diagram for the purpose of adding 2789 El Camino Real to the city's housing element sites inventory. Did I do
Bravo.
okay?
Nicely done. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Huang was trying to get his word in.
So good, you are so good. I have to.
So good. My God, how excited we can get about a motion. We have a motion that was so good by Commissioner Huang, seconded. Hey, what's not being able to
Commissioner
have some
Critchlow?
fun?
Yeah, I vote yes. Again, no one is here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think when the legislature passed that new law, they didn't think how tedious it would be to make them say that for every single vote, but the law's the law.
I know.
We will comply.
Oh, it goes.
Okay, thank you. The motion passed.
At some point, it made sense. All right. Should we call the banished commissioner back?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Welcome
You
back.
weren't listening, were you?
Oh, it was open. All right. So if that's our last, and I'm going to go to make sure we don't have anything that okay, that's our last public hearing item. We are now moving to reports of commission, board liaison, and committee, announcements and other items. I will just say that we have a meeting next week.
So I have an announcement that I am traveling on business and will not be able to make the next meeting.
Okay? So Vice Chair has officially requested to be excused for next meeting. Okay. Any other announcements from staff? Members of the commission? Okay, I will go and tell my rendezvous around the world.
Pardon me, Madam Chair, a commissioner on the end is having some kind of seizure.
Doing a dance on his own? Well, I don't understand his dance movements. He could be saying, I'm celebrating. We adopted the housing element. Commissioner
I
Lance.
don't know if it's an announcement, but it's a notice that if you are having problems with your iPad, what's his name? Voodoo?
Yes.
Seriously, his name is Voodoo. He is our IT contact. and he will help us get adapters, or at least try it with mine, to test to see if we're being throttled by the Wi-Fi, and that could be why we're not being able to download large attachments during the meetings and things. So we're going to get an attachment and see if we can plug it into a Ethernet port and get full throughput. So if you are also experiencing this, then let Elizabeth
Voodoo
know.
Got
And
it.
he will do the voodoo that he does best.
Must be good. We didn't have issues, so I appreciate him being here. And thank you for being our tech guru, as always. Appreciate the, appreciate the public announcement.
I believe his
What else?
name is Voodoo, Commissioner. Yes.
I like voodoo better.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, Woodou, got it. Respectful, always. Commissioner, travel and training reports, request to attend trainings. I will be the first to say that I had a really, really nice experience at the APA NPC 2024. It was held this past weekend. First off, a huge thank you to Elizabeth. Up until the last minute, she made sure that I checked into my flight, that I was able to, ensure that all my attachments for my reservation, all the way from tickets to the hotels to the final sign off for, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I did miss my partner in crime here, but overall, I'll just give a couple of my observations. I have copious notes. If anybody wants to know about me, I love taking notes. I don't read after, but I just love to take. But overall observation, APA, the American Planners Association, is a huge organization across the country, has thousands and thousands of membership, of which some of us have to certify ourselves on an ongoing basis. That is our AICP requirement, which is why I went all the way there. But it was an interesting experience. This is my first national APA. I've been to several California APAs. To see the world outside of California. It is a world out there. I mean, many of us think we are the world. They think we are a world. We're some world. But it was very, very interesting to sit at tables with small towns, big cities, smaller rural areas, all very, very interesting mix of planners, and all aligned, I would say, in the realm of planning, and how they come with the passion, at least in the presentations, to do what's right. And so the topics were fascinating. I would love to go. And I think, Lance, you're doing the virtual, so I hope you get to see more. I had to finish my AICP credits, so some of it was like ethics and law and property law, and I was like, okay, Xander does a better job, but I still had to sit through it. Sustainability and resilience are all mandated. Equity, health equity was a mandated requirement. But outside of the observations, the very, very key topics that rose very high on the level of visibility was climate, sustainability, and resilience. So very much, even though there may be states that are divided, there may be, political angles to whether climate change is real or not, or the planning realm at least acknowledges the importance of addressing climate change, the flood resiliency, the wildfire resiliency, some of our sustainability-related goals were all top-notch workshops. I would highly encourage people to go through it, learn some new words for context. There was a newbie context, which was needs, wants, beliefs, and emotions. So that was my public engagement workshop, and how we look to constituents, and you want to reiterate whether that's really a need, a want, a belief, or an emotion, and they all build on each other. You're absolutely going to have to address the needs. You're going to understand what their wants are, but you want to respect their beliefs about it. And she gave a very fascinating example. I wish I had time to tell you this, I can. And the last was emotions associated with not having it. from the members of the community. So very, very real perspective. 4 days went as a breeze. I did take the sunshine with me, so Minneapolis was really nice in its weather. The day I was leaving, I brought the sunshine back with me. It was pouring. It was pouring, and you could recognize the winter chills probably kicking right in there. But I would say the one thing that I also noticed about APA, which they are very infamous for, they charge for everything that is credit-oriented. So they do the mobile workshops that cost more. So you go there, and you have to sign up for the mobile workshop, which are $55, $45, $25 was the least, and you get 2 credits instead of the 1.5, or 3.5 credits instead of. So I was like, you are buying your credits, which I was like, that's not fair. That's so not fair. Anyway, that's the way it is, but with APA outside of their interest. But ethics was a good class to attend. Where they actually did it in a style like, what would you do? It was like the game, what would you do in that situation? And it was real consultant, lawyer, client experiments. They had 10 of those case studies, only 4 we got through in an hour. But overall, a great experience, I would say. If I had company, I would have enjoyed. But I did tour around Minneapolis. I did see some quirky towns around it.
One comment.
Yes, go ahead.
You don't know how badly I felt. Thank you, Mr. COVID. But I also want to get, so we have to talk more about it. I also want to give Elizabeth a lot of credit because it was a last minute thing for me, getting a positive result on COVID, and I wasn't interested in doing that in an airport or at a conference. I had to pull out of it, but Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking care of all those last minute details. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk more about the conference.
Yes, and I would highly recommend, if you can sign up for the virtual and it's still open, a key component of it was AI. A lot more workshops, so at least the permeating knowledge of AI is very much in the planning realms. Millennials and AI, generative AI, how do you use AI in the GIS realm, new apps that can be created just using AI with GIS, fascinating knowledge bank out there. So if you can go for an experience, go for it. I truly want to appreciate our city that supports the training for planning commissioners and allows us to go despite all the other constraints that we hear of financially. And so the due faith effort for us is to bring that knowledge back and implement it in our day-to-day business. So thank you again to the city. I will rest my spiel.
Well, just to comment on to that, the virtual conference is May 8th through the 10th. So you just mentioned if anyone else wanted to sign up, because Commissioner Salem is doing that. So if you're interested, you can contact me. I don't know the cost off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
$350.
$350, thank you.
Although I would say 4 days is too much,
It depends.
They're like 40, 50 sessions. I went 16 sessions or so, which was my status. It was exhausting.
Well,
For 4 days. You don't have a Saturday or Sunday, by the way, just so you know.
I'm a potential, but based on the last several online adventures I've had, I don't want the city to spend $350 so I get bounced out of everything.
So we'll test with
see.
Lance, and then he can vouch. He can go a Yelp on us to say recommend or not recommend.
Share your screen.
Okay, thank you for allowing me and engaging. We'll now, did I miss anybody else's training?
Well, now that you've given all the spoilers, I guess I don't have to attend, right?
I just skimmed at the
ones
top.
you
You got to
didn't
go
go
and
to.
learn about it. But there was so much, that's why I said, out of the 40-plus sessions, I barely skimmed. So you could go to the ones that I didn't.
There you go.
Yeah, well, definitely, if you have a list of ones.
Yes, I put a whole list.
I will definitely try and fill in a few.
Yeah, okay. I will share that offline. Moving to the Director of Community Development reports, and I know this is something that you shared with us. Is this something you want to talk to?
Yes, thank you. So per the commission's previous request at, I think it was the last meeting, maybe the meeting before that, you had requested the city's annual progress report. This is something that we submit to HCD every year. This went to City Council for their approval on the 19th of March, and we have since forwarded it to HCD. So I printed everything out to you. I will set, it's the council staff report and the attachments. The APR report itself is just a table that we fill out, and it's a table. And that table is given to us by HCD. We don't get to say how that looks or what information it collects. So that's us filling out the table. I will send this to you electronically as well. But just for you to note, 2023 was our first year of our sixth cycle housing element, and we entitled 2,667 units last year. We issued 916 building permits for new housing last year. So already doing well towards our sixth cycle RENA.
Thank you. Very, very proud of our city and nipping away, but can't catch up fast enough, so I won't put the but there, but let's do what we can. Thank you again, and if you could send it electronically,
Yes.
we'll get better time to review it. Any other upcoming agenda, budget updates? Sorry, Elizabeth?
As far as your budget, as you know, your opening account was 16,979. As of today, you're at approximately 9,650. We still have to reconcile some conference.
One last meal, yeah.
Yeah, but for the most part, that's pretty much where we're at.
Thank you again. And it accounts for our dinner. So again, thank you for dinner tonight as well. And we hope everybody is taking advantage of this gracious favor by the city. Upcoming agenda items, staff?
As I mentioned earlier, next week we have our regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, and you'll be hearing the zoning code map update item.
And the cleanup, the first cleanup ordinance to the zoning ordinance, fixing things we discovered shortly after adoption. There will be others. A lot of
Yeah.
cross-references to fix.
Yeah.
We still haven't gotten them all, but we're getting there.
Must be fun. City council actions?
There are no city council actions. to
I will report on one city council action, and I'm very happy to say that I saw a partner here. I was at the recent city council priority setting session at the Santa Clara Convention Center. I had the good fortune of being able to attend with my son, who's also on the youth commission. So he, of course, represented himself, but was willing to take on the onerous. But I did see a full motivation and investment of both time and effort by our city council to look at the priorities with a democratic process in mind and encouraging more individuals, members of community to actually bring their feedback. I was disappointed. I made the case based on my prior constituents' outreach to me for the downtown to be a priority for the city. However, it took a little shot and did not make it even to the top 34 priorities, which was hugely disappointing. And I'm sure there will be more discussions around it. Personally, to actually Commissioner Bouza's interest in business, I think that downtown really should become the foci to bring businesses and to bring communities and to bring more focused effort to bring people together. So that was interesting. So I just wanted to share that it was a very due faith effort. There was food. The venue was broad and open. Very limited participation inside. There was a lot more participation online. So members of the public with dropping kids, were still giving their insight. So I appreciated the virtual plus in person. I hope more residents actually come forward and take the benefit of bringing their interest for these. Otherwise, it was just a consultant writing the mechanizations of it.
And there'll be a final report that's given to council based on that session as well, so which I'm assuming would be available to the public.
Thank you. Will Planning Commission see it?
Yes.
Thank you. Because I was asked, will it come to Planning Commission? I would like to make a case.
I'll bring it to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, any other topics of interest, okay? Seeing none, we will adjourn meeting at 7:45.